Today I'll be speaking about open source intelligence. So probably the most easiest phase in cybersecurity. So this is the phase. This is the domain where even a common man can easily become a security researcher. So I would suggest open source intelligence is the easiest phase you can get started in cybersecurity. Right. So, what actually open source intelligence is, to give a broad view about what OSINT is, as the name states, open source intelligence is actually the data that is collected from the publicly available sources, and the important part here is anyone can extract the data by following the methodologies which I am about to share. But the critical part lies in the fact that how you are going to use the data that you have extracted. That is where the usefulness of the data you have extracted depends. So that is why it is called open source intelligence. You have to use the data in an intelligent manner. You have to apply your common sense and several skills to the extracted data to connect and correlate the data, right? And as I have already mentioned, this is the easiest part in cybersecurity. So cybersecurity has dozens of subdomains: malware analysis, reverse engineering, threat intelligence, so and so. You can deal with policies, etc. But I would suggest, according to my perception, open source intelligence is beginner friendly. You don't have to know everything. Like unlike other fields of cybersecurity, for example, if you got a get into the malware analysis, you have to know reverse engineering first of all. There are several dependencies for other parts of subdomains, whereas when we compare open source intelligence with other parts of the subdomains of cybersecurity, it is relatively easy and it requires very less prerequisites. So that is why open source intelligence is the very easiest part to get started with cybersecurity. And also OSINT is used in national security, law enforcement, and business intelligence. So, as we have already know, cybersecurity plays a vital role in national security. We have a intelligence bureau, national security agencies working in this specific field of cybersecurity, and we also have several other law enforcement agencies like MI5, MI6 working on this particular field of cybersecurity. So, why they use open source intelligence is that uh, sometimes instead of hacking the terrorist, instead of we might not know the basic details to get access to the devices of the terrorist devices, so and so for getting the basic information, those law enforcement agencies and national security make use of this open source intelligence. And also this OSINT is used in business intelligence to improve the reach of their business. So by using open source intelligence, businesses can promote their social media campaigns towards a specific range of people by leveraging open source intelligence. And like I've already mentioned, open source intelligence requires a lot of common sense and understanding the connections between data. So open source intelligence has something to deal with the day-to-day problems that we face, uh, day-to-day common sense and stuffs like that. So you'll get a broad view in the upcoming slides. So let's get into it. Okay, so there are several types of intelligence gathering. Like open source intelligence gathering is just a part in a broad field of intelligence gathering. We have stuffs like human intelligence and image intelligence. So what human intelligence is that MI6, that is, you guys must have seen the movies like Mission Impossible and stuff. So in those movies, you might have heard of this organization called MI5, MI6. So actually, these are not some fictional organizations. They actually exist. MI5 is an organization. MI5, both MI5 and MI6 belong to the country of United Kingdom. So MI5 deals with the internal affairs of the country, internal security of the country, whereas MI6 will deal with the external affairs like external terrorism. Likewise, so MI6 will be operating from all other countries outside United Kingdom, and they'll use this human intelligence and image intelligence to gather detail about the terrorists. And image intelligence is nothing like, is very similar to analyzing the images you have extracted and finding whatever the information that you can extract from the given image. So that is what image intelligence is. And next we have signal intelligence, which deals with the signals, which deals with intercepting and analyzing the frequencies, signals, and gathering or decoding information from the encrypted signals. Likewise, that is called signal intelligence. And geo intelligence is where you would you'd use Google Earth and other satellite imaging platforms to get data about a particular geographical location. That is what GeoInt is. And we have another field called MASINT, which will deal with other stuff that other part of intelligence does not concentrate on. So MASINT will basically concentrate on stuffs like nuclear and electro-optical, radar, frequency, and even materials. For example, from a material we can get the chemical properties and compound values. Likewise, so that is what MASINT is all about. And finally, we have a new emerging field called CybInt. So this field focuses on the cyber attacks and the attack logs, which the cyber intelligence analyst will use those logs to analyze how the attack has been happened, where is the loophole present, what kind of attack that the attacker used, and likewise. So that is what cyber intelligence is about. So these are the various fields of intelligence gathering. So out of all these, in cyber security, we have open source intelligence, which deal with extracting information from openly available internet sources. So yeah, what can I OSINT? You can pretty much using open source intelligence, you can gather data about pretty much everything. For example, that includes open source intelligence includes open source OSINT on people. You can OSINT on domain, and you can OSINT on internet assets like IP address, and even you have a OSINT on others, that is MAC address images. So first of all, for performing OSINT on people, you need something called base information. So without any information, you can't OSINT a person. You need some very basic information at least. For example, the basic information I keep saying will refer to stuffs like their name, or it could be their last name, or it could be their full name, or username, email, any stuff. These are all what we refer to as base information. So that would include name, username, email, phone number. There we can get using these details, we can get their emotions and their geographical location too. And we have a lot more of information. We can extract a lot more of information from OSINTing on people. And then we can OSINT on a domain. So we can get the details like subdomain, we can get their MX records, mail server records, and ports. You can find the open ports in order to communicate with the particular domain. And you can perform whois lookup and so and so. Like in the previous session, Praveen had mentioned how you could scan for ports, what kind of tools you could use for port scanning. Likewise, so we have several open source intelligence tools which would perform all the above mentioned tasks. And then we could also apply open source intelligence on gathering details about IP address. So we can get details like geolocation of the IP address, and we can detect whether the given IP is lying behind any kind of anonymity softwares like proxy or VPN or Tor. Likewise, we can only detect whether they are using. We can't find the real IP address if they are using, but just law enforcement agencies would be able to even get the real IP lying behind these anonymity softwares if they use proxy or VPN, these kind of stuffs. But if they use Tor, even law enforcement agencies will find it difficult to unravel the original IP address. Also, we can detect whether the given IP address belongs to any IoT device, or whether the IP address belongs to any company. It comes within any CID or range of a company. And you can also, interestingly, you can get the torrent download history. So I have come across a site recently that will allow you to extract what are all the downloads, movie downloads, especially torrent downloads, which the given IP had downloaded in the past 24 hours. And that was a interesting site, which I'll share in the upcoming slides. And also you can perform open source intelligence on MAC address. So what MAC address is, actually it is a physical address. Unlike IP address, IP address is actually dynamic IP address, which will keep on changing. So IP address is something that will be assigned by your ISP, whereas MAC address comes with your NIC card. In every device you purchase, if the device is able to connect to the internet, it will have something called a wireless card, NIC card, which will have a physical address called MAC address. It cannot be changed. I mean, it can be changed via softwares, but it is a physical address. You can spoof MAC, but you can't change the MAC address of the physical MAC address of the NIC card. And so using the MAC address, what you can do is you can get information like what kind of device it is actually. For example, if I am using an Android device, and let's for example consider I am using Asus mobile. So with my MAC address, you can get details like what device am I using, that is what specific model am I using. So you can get using my MAC address, you can extract information like I am using Asus ROG 2. So you can get these kind of details, and where my device has been manufactured, whether it is in Taiwan or China or Korea, where exactly the device has been manufactured. So these kind of information you can get from a MAC address. And you can perform open source intelligence on images, like social media images that have been shared across the social media platforms like Instagram, Facebook, LinkedIn. Likewise, you can analyze those images. I mean, there is a famous technique called metadata analysis, where you'll be analyzing metadata from images, but sadly, in order to compress the size of the image that is shared in social media sites, what the social media sites will actually do is, whenever you upload a photo into these social media sites, they'll strip off the metadata to compress the image of to compress the size of the image. So as soon as the image gets uploaded in this social media, those metadata will be stripped up. So what this metadata will actually contain is the information like from which device the image has been clicked, or if the geographical location is on when you are clicking the image. You can get details like from which exact geolocation the image has been captured. Likewise, you can get the frame rate, you can get the details about the particular camera, FPS rate, everything you can get in an image. Only if the metadata is not stripped away. If the metadata is stripped away, you can get very little amount of information. So during those times, you gotta use your common intelligence to find to find data from the images. And later we can also apply open source intelligence on Bitcoin addresses. So we won't get any sensitive information when it comes to Bitcoin addresses, because as you all pretty much know, it's untraceable. So what will happen is we can find where for example, for a given Bitcoin address, we can find where the transaction has been occurred, to which address, to which particular address the transaction has been occurred, and stuff like that. Then we have OSINT. Then we can also perform OSINT on vehicle numbers. There are pretty much dozens of app in Play Store, but only one will work. That is Parivahan. It is an official government app which you can use to get information on a given vehicle number. Also, there is a web application. You can access it via browser also. Using that, you can get the details from a given vehicle number. Out of all these open source intelligence techniques, you can also use open source intelligence on cameras. Like you can find a geographical location specific cameras and access, and you can have a direct view on those cameras. I'll explain it later. So let's move on. So why should we perform open source intelligence? Right. So it allows you to gather a huge amount of data. First of all, that is the most primary point. So with a very basic information you have, for example, it might be just a name. You just have a name of a person with very little basic information. Open source intelligence will allow you to gather lots and lots of data about the given individual about from the basic information. So that is why we use open source intelligence. And how this process happens is what interesting part is. So using open source intelligence, whatever the data you gather, all these data will be gathered without sending a packet to your target. By saying a packet, what I mean is your target won't even know that you are performing open source intelligence. For example, if you are performing OSINT on me, I wouldn't be knowing that you are performing. I'll be doing my stuff without my knowledge. You can get lots and lots of details about me. That is what the interesting part of open source intelligence actually is. So yeah, that's pretty much about it. And we have several other reasons, especially the reasons mentioned here will be abused by hackers and social engineers especially. So what social engineering actually is that today around 95% the internet is actually secure, 95%. But what actually insecure are the people who use the internet. For example, most of the guys are unaware of the internet security. That is why most of the attacks take place. For example, bank frauds and every other financial frauds happen because of the ignorance of the people. So that is what social engineering actually is. So without your knowledge, I'll be getting all the details about you, and I'll later use that details which I've gathered against you for financial purposes. So so for social engineering, what you need is actually interaction. You had to interact in social engineering. You have to directly interact with the target or the target surroundings or the people who have been very close with the target likewise. So for social engineering, you need to establish a direct contact. That is what we call as active versus where OSINT is passive. Because in active, you have to directly get into the field. You have to directly physically go to the place, go to the actual geographical location where the target is residing, and you have to gather information about the target. Whereas in open source intelligence, you can just sit in front of a computer anywhere in the world. All you need is just the internet and an operating system, of course, and a computer too. So using all these stuffs, you can gather so much of information from the place you sit. So that is why open source intelligence is very useful for hackers and social engineers. Right. Also, it can be used for password cracking. For example, most probably you can't keep a dictionary word as your password because there is a famous attack called dictionary attack. For example, what this attack basically is that I'll download a dictionary from the internet and I'll brute force each and every password in the dictionary. So if you keep any password in that any password that is inside the dictionary, then you'll be hacked. So that is what basically dictionary attack is. So most of you guys won't be, I hope most of you guys won't be having passwords that are available in dictionary. So people will obviously use something that's personal, the password that will be relating to their parents' name or the year of birth or the place of birth, likewise, or the combination of all these data. So that is how people will basically keep passwords, around 80% of them, or their famous movies or their favorite films, their favorite music, famous authors, likewise. So using open source intelligence, you can get those data. Then after extracting all these data, you can construct a word list on your own by combinations, by using, this is where, like I said, the probability and the common sense part comes in. So you have to use your common sense to construct the word list. So right, why open source intelligence is used? Because for password cracking and KBA optimization and social engineering, we can get details like your pet name, and your year of birth. Obviously, from your Instagram bio itself, you will be mentioning like first crayon, first dion. Likewise, you'll be mentioning stupid stuffs, and from those data, it would be very easy, especially if your date of birth is exposed. It's kind of very easy to get to the next steps of open source intelligence. So date of birth is actually a unique identifier. It will serve as a unique identifier for a person, because multiple individuals will have the same name, Adityan. For example, if you're targeting me, if you have a like, let me say, for example, if you have a huge word list with all the data of Adityan in Tamil Nadu, like all the people who have the name Adityan, what serves as unique identifier is my date of birth. So that is the unique identifier. Using those, so you can narrow down to my name. So if you expose them very easily, then it will be very useful for the hackers to narrow down your information, to extract further information with the date of birth. And pet name you'll be mentioning in stories, captions, likewise. And obviously the relative names, which the attacker would be able to get your relative names from your tagging. You'll be tagging, right? So when your friends come over, or when your relatives come over to your home, you'll get a snap, and you'll mention all of them in your Instagram pic by tagging them, right? So by using those tags, they can get the relative names. So even if you don't expose your birthday, or even if you don't expose your geographical location, from the people you tag, the attackers will be able to get the geographical location of you and your birthday and stuffs like that. So, and the place of birth, which can be extracted from Facebook information, and your favorite food. Like by stalking your profile continuously for a week or so, if you are a foodie who clicks pictures often and post in Instagram, it would be easy for anyone to guess your favorite food. And if you're married, the place of your marriage, sometimes this can also be used as a password. Like if you're so loving your partner, then you could use those information in your password. So hackers could extract where you were married from the post you posted, and your previous addresses, your where you have been previously working on. Stuffs like these can be extracted from LinkedIn profiles. So you'll be mentioning everything in LinkedIn, right? Especially your engineer or anything. If you're, especially if you're an engineer, you'll be mentioning everything for placements. So it's pretty much easy to extract any information about you from your LinkedIn profile. And the list of schools, your first teacher, likewise, and the year account or mortgage, the loan account, when your bank account was opened, when your loan was opened, likewise. These stuffs can be gathered from open source intelligence, and they can be used for password cracking too. Right. So let's have a look at how to approach the people open source intelligence part. So first of all, you have to start with the details you know. That is what I keep on saying as base information. So it can be an email or a name or a username, or even the part of the name, like it can be a first name or last name. So OSINT is a step-by-step process. From very little information, we'll keep on extracting further information. So after knowing what you know, you have to define the requirements, what you want to get. So you need a goal, whether where you have to stop. The ocean has limits. There are certain limits, and you have to stop at a certain point. For example, if getting her email or getting her phone number, sorry for mentioning her, if getting the target's email or target's phone number is your motive, then you got to define that as the goal. You just not go beyond that. So those are the requirements, what you want to get. And what are requirements also define what tools and what technique you are going to use. Those are also come under requirements. And finally, you'll gather the data using the techniques you have mentioned in the requirements. And the most important part here is analyzing the collected data. This is where you'll actually get a lot of information about the target. More than gathering the data, analyzing the data will give you a lot of information about the particular target. So pivot as needed using the new gather data. Pivot is nothing but leveraging yourself from the step. For example, let's say you have an email ID, Adityan 2000 at gmail.com. From this email ID, you know my year of birth. That is 2000 is my year of birth. So this can be considered as a pivot. So using this date of birth, you can get using my year of birth, you can get further information. So this is how you have to pivot from information that you have extracted. And finally, you have to validate your assumption. So you can assume everything from the data gathered. Like I said, adityan2000.com, adityan2000 at gmail.com. In the 2000 in my email might represent my year of birth, or also it can represent any other thing. It could be my favorite number, or it could be anything. So you have to validate your assumptions. So this is also an important part. And finally, you got to generate a report on what are all the data you have gathered, and based on what assumptions you have gathered, and what is the probability that the data is accurate. These kind of stuff. This is the basic approach for open source intelligence on people. And yeah, now let's get into the requirements part for performing open source intelligence on people. So name is actually, this is a high priority input if the person is famous. For example, if you are performing OSINT on Shah Rukh Khan or Ajit Kumar or Vijay, then during those times, name could be a high priority input. Or even if the person you are targeting has a very high internet presence. By internet presence, what I mean is their social media activity, or if he is a blogger, or if he is a YouTuber, or he has any kind of, or the target has any kind of internet presence, then during those times the name, just the name will be regarded as the high priority input. And the next is username. The username can also be, username is actually the very high priority input. If the person is an average internet user like you or me, everyone in this session, so we are all just an average internet users. We don't I assume you don't have very high internet activity, like you're not very famous likewise. So like for people like us, username is actually a unique identifier. For example, out of 100 profiles named with similar name like Adityan, AK Infosec or Adityan.ak. This Adityan.ak is my unique identifier. This is my username. So this username will allow you to uniquely identify my profile out of all the other 99 profiles. So that is why username is considered as a very high priority input if the target is an average internet user. And then we have a phone number, which is very high if the input is if the target is actually a ghost. For example, if you and me, we are all internet average users, so we have username as a high priority input. But for old peoples, they don't have internet activities, right? So for them, phone number is the high priority input. What ghost actually is that the people who don't have any information related to them in the internet. So actually there are two types of data in the internet. For example, to define broadly, there are only two types of data in the internet. First is the data that you share about yourself, for the data that you share in your social network or in your blogs in YouTube. The data that you share about yourself is the first type of data. And we have the second type of data, that is the data that is shared about you without your knowledge. So these are the second type of data. So if in case if the target is a ghost, like I have already mentioned what a ghost is. So if the target user does not have any internet presence, then finally we have to need at least their phone number in order to gather the information about them. So that's about it. And email is also a high priority input if you want to get access to the target. So first of all, the name, username, and phone number, these three are important if you just wanna extract information about the target. And email is very important if you wanna get access to the target. By access, what I mean is, if you are a attacker, if you are a red teamer or likewise, you got to find their email in order to get access to the company or in order to get access to the device, because every email is associated with a device. And especially Gmail IDs, Gmail IDs is synced with the device, and using the Gmail IDs you can get every data, like what the user has been doing, how many times he has visited the home screen, how many apps he had been using, what is the recent search, Google search, what is his voice, even you can even get his voice. Every time you speak to Google Assistant, your voice will be recorded in Google Cloud. So you can also extract those data if you get access to the email ID. And then we have a image, which is almost low priority. It's actually useless if you have, if unless you have a very really good image analysis skills, because uh, by images, what I mean is the images that we extract from social media. For example, if you extract the post that I have been posting in Instagram, you won't be able to get much information rather than my friend's name, because I have also tagged my friends. You can get my friend's name and you can get my geolocation likewise. But these are all the data that is available in the Instagram, not from the image. From the image, you get very little information. So because as I have already mentioned, when you upload images to the social media, your metadata will be stripped away and you'll be left with very little amount of information. So unless you have a very interesting image analysis skills, you won't be able to gather much of data from a given image. And finally, we have the date of birth, which is a low priority input. Actually, we won't be using date of birth everywhere, because date of birth mostly won't be indexed in search engines. Unlike name and usernames, date of birth won't be indexed in search engines. But again, it can be used as a unique ID for searching the particular target. For example, if we have, as I already mentioned, we have 100 names similar to Adityan, then we could use date of birth to uniquely identify the Adityan that you fixed as target. So that is what the requirements for the OSINTing the people. And this is the approach for people OSINT. So this is we need to start with the real name, and we gotta put those real names in Twitter, Facebook. We can also use Whois search to find the people. Actually, the problem with this Whois search and other people search engines is that they are US specific or UK, Australia, foreign country specific. Though they won't work mostly in India, because there is no tool right now in India that will index all the Indian population, all the Indian people. So we can't be using tools like Whois search. But again, we can use Twitter posting. The good thing about open source intelligence is that you always have alternatives. You always have alternatives for the technique you want to use. So if Whois search is not possible, you can find the Twitter posts likewise. And we have a Facebook. From Facebook, you'll find his Facebook profile, and from his Facebook profile, you can get his username. From username, you can get the user number. So for a given Facebook ID, there is for a given Facebook profile, for every profile there will be a ID, unique ID. Also, there will be a unique username. Username is also unique for every profile, and for every profile there will be an associated user ID. So using that particular user ID, you can you can analyze the Facebook profile by using Facebook custom tools. There are several tools available in the internet. Using those tools, you can analyze the profile by just inputting the unique user ID for the particular Facebook profile. So you can analyze stuffs like the comments made by the profile, the photos posted by the profile, the videos, and the events the particular target is participating in. So all these stuffs you can get from the Facebook custom tools, and also you can get the relatives data by the people who has been tagged by the target. And there is something called the Intel Techniques name search tool. This is a custom tool which is also available in the internet. I'll be showing it later. So using those tools, you can get the relatives addresses and their phone numbers. But again, this Intel Techniques name search tool is not very effective when it comes to Indian crowd. So this has very low probability of leading to the actual data that you want to get. But again, what would be an effective approach is that voter records is actually a very effective technique that will help you to get the physical address where the given target is residing in. From voter records, you'll be able to get their address. And also we have people search engines. Like I've already mentioned, this is also very least effective technique when it comes to Indian crowd. So we can't be all these are people search engines, but sad reality is that they won't be working on Indian crowd. But if your target is a person who is residing in United States, Canada, UK, Australia, Europe, likewise, during those conditions, you can use these people search engines. But for Indian crowd, it's very it is pretty much the least accurate data source that I would consider. And yeah, what I would consider as the most important data source is the search engines. So the search engines have dozens of data about you. Like I've already mentioned, there are two types of data about you. One is the data that you share about yourself, and other is the data that will be shared by others about you. So even you won't be having any knowledge that such data about you is existing in the internet. So Google, Bing, and Yandex, these type of search engines will allow you to access the data that even the target don't know that these data exist in the internet. So using these search engines, you can get that. And occasionally you can get phone numbers and addresses from search engines too. Right. So this is pretty much the OSINT approach that you have to take when you're performing open source intelligence on peoples. So let's let's see how you can approach people OSINT when you have just the name of the target. So if you have just the name for Indian crowd, I have two types of sources, data sources. This people search, as I already mentioned, these are you know sorry. So this people search is actually not very effective on Indian crowd. So let's skip this people search and let's have a look at search engines and government portals. So search engines will allow you to gather data about the particular target. There are several types of custom search engines. So for example, Google will allow you to customize your search engines. You can create a custom search engine that will that will help you to gather exactly the data that you wanted. And there is something called Google Docs, which is a effective way of using Google to get the exact data what you wanted. I'll be showing you how you can construct Google Docs and how you can create customized search engines and stuff in the next slide. And the next effective technique is government portals, where you can be getting voter IDs and the electoral rolls and even their targets addresses too. So yeah, now let's have a look at what Docs actually is. So for Docs, we have something called operators. It's very similar to what we do in programming. In programming, we have operators like or, and. These are called operators, right? So the same can be used in Google too. For example, let's say you want to OSINT me. I am Adityan. You know my first name and last name. My first name is Adityan and my last name is AK. So if I am the target, you can use something like in URL, and you can give the data. For example, in URL is a Google Doc which will allow you to return the Google results that have the particular URL as the search term, and in title is something that will allow you to write instead of defining. It would be easy if I could show you. Yeah. So fine. So for constructing a Google Doc, you need operator and data. By data, what I mean is the data, the basic information you have about the target. If you have Adityan AK as the basic information, then that is the data. So you need to use operator colon the data. So let's see in URL Adityan AK. Right. So now what this sorry. Yeah, so I have constructed a Google Doc that will return all the results that has Adityan AK in the URL. As you can see in the GitHub URL, you can see in the GitHub URL, right? This has Adityan AK in the URL. That is why this search result has been returned. So what you are actually doing here is that you are asking Google to return all the URLs that have Adityan AK in their URI. So that is what you are doing. So this is the operator part. In URL is the operator part, and Adityan AK is the data part. So you're asking the Google to return all the URLs that have Adityan AK in them. So that is what in URL is for. And we have similar operators like in title, in text, file type, site. So in title, what it will actually do is, let me show you. Yeah, so what in title will do is, so this is what we call as title. This is the URL part. So the linkedin.com greater than symbol AK infosec. So this is the URL, and this is what we call as a title. And here we have the meta information of the particular site. So what I'm doing is that I'm asking Google to return all the websites that has Adityan AK in the page title. So this is the page title. As you can see, this is the page title. This is page title. In all these page titles, it will have something called Adityan AK, because that is the data that you have mentioned here. This is the operator part and this is the data part. So you are instructing Google to return all the URLs that have Adityan AK as their page title. So that is why in title is used for. And we have in text. In text means that let me show you. Right. So what you are asking Google to is to return all the URLs that has Adityan AK inside the text. For example, if you open this page, if you open this LinkedIn profile, you could find Adityan AK in the page that is loading here. Also, if you open Google Scholar or if you open GitHub profile, you can find Adityan AK inside the page. You can find Adityan here, right? You can find Adityan AK here. So what you are asking Google is that by using this operator in text, you are asking Google to return all the data that has, all the websites that has Adityan AK inside their pages, inside the page content. That is what you are asking in the by using this in text operator. And you can also use something called file type. That is file type PDF. So yeah, since I'm using Google frequently, if you are using Google frequently too, you'll be characters. You'll be provided with the CAPTCHA, right? So what I'm actually doing here is that I want to get all the PDF files that has Adityan AK inside the content. For example, this is a research paper that I have written. So inside this research paper, I have Adityan AK. So that is why you have got this result. And if I open this PDF, this is a reverse engineering paper in IEEE. All these papers will have Adityan AK inside the PDF. So what I'm asking Google is that I want all the PDF files in the internet that has Adityan AK inside it. So that is what this Google Doc means. You can combine multiple Google Docs. Also, I have mentioned operators, right? And or you can use all these programming operators here. So that is what pretty much Google Docs is actually. And getting to custom search engines, you can create your own custom search engine by visiting this URL. So you can just have to click on get started, and you have to give what are all the sites to search. Let me show you a pre-configured search engine. So this is actually a pre-configured search engine. So here you will have a search box. In this search box, all you have to do is type the suspect name or the target's name and click go search button, and you'll get all the results about the target from all the sites. For example, you can see here you have my GitHub profile, Google Scholar profile, LinkedIn, Twitter, Facebook, Speaker Hub, Instagram, and Facebook again, and my Medium profile too, and so much of data about me. Here you have my Youth for Work profile and my Quora profile. Then yeah, so as you can see, here you have my exploit DB profile also. So what exploit DB is that? I hope you guys know what exploit actually is. Exploit is a technique that could be used to hack into a device. So I have written exploit, as I've already mentioned in my intro. So this is my exploit. All the exploits will be uploaded in exploitdb.com. Here, if you write your own exploit, you can upload it in exploitdb.com. It will get automatically uploaded if it is a very severe vulnerability. And so as you can see in this custom search engine, you are getting a lot of detail about me from just my first name and last name. You have my GitHub profile. From my GitHub profile, you can get data like in which organization am I working. So I am working as a security researcher at OWASP Coimbatore. So you now know my geographical location too. And here I have mentioned a URL. So that is not working right. Fine. So you can view my repositories to understand what language I am coding in. As you can see, most of my projects contain Python, which means I am good at Python. So this is also a data. This is also, so each and when it comes to OSINT, every minute detail that you gather about target can be used against the target. So that is what makes OSINT interesting. So you can't discard any data as useless. That is why I segregated data into priorities. Like while I was explaining the requirements for open source intelligence on people, I was mentioning date of birth as low priority and phone number as high priority, because everything has a priority. You can't discard any data. In later part, that data might be used against that data might be used against the target, or that data might come into use for any situation. So that is why everything has a priority when it comes to open source intelligence. And right, so this is a PDF file that contains my name. So this is my talk at DEF CON Trivandrum that has that has very low information about me. Right here, yeah, from here you can know my information, like I am a head of OWASP Coimbatore and I am a member of TCSE. I have Hall of Fame and I have been a top 4 in OPPO security research, like it was in 2018, I guess. And I was a owner of CVs and research papers. So you get pretty much every information about me just from a Google Doc, right? Just from a PDF file in the internet. And here is my Google Scholar profile, where you can see my area of research. Here you can see my area of research, cybersecurity, malware analysis. You can get every information about me here. And here you can see what are all the research I have actually been worked on. And you can also see my co-authors. From my co-authors, you can get a, for example, if you don't know from which college I am from, you can just visit the co-author profile. From this co-author profile, you can know which college I am. So my co-author is in Sri Krishna College of Technology and Engineering and Technology. So which by basic assumption, by basic common sense, you can come to a conclusion that I could also be a student in Sri Krishna College of Engineering. So because both of the professors, both of the co-authors belong to Sri Krishna College of Engineering and Technology. So from this, you can assume that I could also be a student in Sri Krishna College of Engineering and Technology. So now you have assumptions. Now you have built an assumption that I could be a student in SKCET. But again, this is just an assumption. You have to verify it somehow. So what you can do is you just have to note this assumption and just keep on searching until you verify the assumption. So yeah, this is my GitHub profile, and now here we have a LinkedIn profile. From your LinkedIn profile, you can verify my assumption. You can verify your assumption. So from my Google Scholar profile, you are able to assume that I could be a student in Sri Krishna College of Engineering and Technology. But just from my LinkedIn profile, you now have confirmed the assumption that I am a student in Sri Krishna College of Engineering and Technology. So this is how you should validate your assumptions. Like I have already said while in the beginning of this session, you need to validate your assumptions. You can assume anything, but in the end, the validations or what present the accuracy of the data that you have extracted. So here you have every information about me because I'm an engineer. Obviously, I'll have all my data listed in listed in my LinkedIn profiles. So you can get what are all the my achievements and my skills, where I have been studying. So I am studying IT, information technology, and you can know my year to which from which year to which year. So next year I'll be passing out. Right now I'm studying final year. So you can get those information just from my LinkedIn profile, and also the past work profiles. So where I have been working from 2013, then from till now I have been working on various cyber security firms. You have every information about that. So that is what programmable search engines, that is custom search engines, are for. This will give you every detail about the person. So you can create your own custom search engine in the URL in the programmable search engine.google.com. Here, what you have to mention is you have to mention the sites that should only be written. For example, while constructing this search engine, I have mentioned sites like GitHub, Google Scholar, LinkedIn, Twitter, everything while constructing this this custom search engine. So if you want to create a custom search engine that will get you details about a particular target, you have to first list what are all the sites your search engine must search. For example, you should mention facebook.com and instagram.com and linkedin.com. So everything you should keep on listing what are all the sites that should mention, because even in this even in this search engine I have constructed, you can see that I have a lot of false positives, because this there is a Hindi YouTube video which does not in any way connected with me. It might belong to some other Aditya K. But again, YouTube is something I mentioned while constructing the programming, while constructing this particular programmable search engine, custom search engine. So that is why we get YouTube results. And I have mentioned LinkedIn, Quora, everything. I have mentioned Stack Overflow too. So that is why I am getting. But also this have a false positives. Like you can see, NDTV is something that that is not useful for this particular case. For Aditya AK, for this particular keyword, NDTV is not that much useful. But if the person is a famous celebrity, then during those times you could use NDTV, because sometimes there will be occurrences of the target in news websites like Times Now, Times India, likewise. So yeah, so you have to mention what are all the sites the particular search engine should search. Also, you have your indications here, like if you want to search in a very specific page, you gotta give the full URL, like AK Infosec. That is it. This is the full URL of my Facebook profile. So if you want to search only in this particular URL and not entire Facebook, you have to give the entire URI. But if you want to search the entire Facebook site, then you have to give a star next to it. Instagram.com/star and LinkedIn.com/star. So what this will do is, this will return all the URLs from facebook.com that has the given keyword. And you just have to mention the name of the search engine, like people search, right? Right. So this is how you can create custom search engine. So let me close. Fine. So this is also one of my PPT, which has Adityan AK inside it. So that is why this has been written. Fine. This is what Google Docs is about. Now let's get into next one. Okay, so as I've already mentioned, the two most important sources for searching people, one is search engine and another one is voter election portal. So that is what we have seen in Google. Only Google allows the ability to construct a custom search engine, but also we have several other search engines like Bing, which is a Microsoft powered search engine, and we have DuckDuckGo, which is a privacy oriented search engine, and we have Yandex, which is a Russian search engine. So these three are the famous search engines which you can use as an alternative for Google. Among these three, Yandex will give you good results if the target you are searching is a person who's residing abroad and not in India. And also, it will obviously give you the social media profiles of the people who are residing in India. But again, it's not a very very keen, or it's not very relevant, I would say. But DuckDuckGo is something that is very good in terms of Indian crowd, and Bing is also a decent one. Now let's get to see about how you can gather data about a particular target from a voter portal. So our Indian government provides something called electoral services, where any person who's beyond the age of 18 can check whether they are eligible to vote or not, and they can also check their poll booth, like where they should vote, those informations. So by abusing these informations, attackers can get your location. By location, I mean your district, your village, your street, and even your house number, by abusing this information. So let's have a look at how they could do this. Right, so here this is electoralsearch.in. From here you have to enter your target's name. So for this purpose, demo purpose, I'm using myself as a target. So I am Adityan. So you have to enter the target's age or date of birth. So if you have a date of birth, you can give date of birth, or if you just have no age, you can just give age. Age is pretty much easy. My age is 20, so I'm giving 20, and you have to select the date, state, and the district, which is Namakkal, and the assembly constituency. There are just 6 constituencies, so you can even brute force it. It's not a problem. And my father's name is Arun Kumar. So you can get this profile just from, you can get this information from my LinkedIn or Facebook, or even a simple guess. AK would mean anything, Ajit Kumar and Kumar likewise. And my gender, and finally the captcha Z0T5SO. Right. So search, and that's it. Voila, you have got my information. So here you can see my EPIC number, which is unique for every individual in India. It is similar like what Aadhaar card is, but it is provided only to the people who are above the age of 18. And so my age is not yet updated in electoral search, but still we have got the result. So you can see my polling station. I should be able to vote in this aided e-school Talambadi 637019 south facing tile building. So now you got my polling station, but again this is just a starting point. So you just confirm that all these details are correct. That is why you can use electoral search for. You can confirm whether the person exists or not by using this electoral search. But in order to get the complete address of the target of my Adityan, of this particular individual, then you can see something here called part number and serial number. You can use this to get the complete address. I'll show you how. So let's get back to this elections.tngovernment.in. Here you have something called electoral rolls. You just have to click on it, and here you have different types of roles, but if you want the updated role, you have to click on mother role. So in mother role, you have to choose the district. So my district is Namakkal, and you have to choose the assembly constituency. Like you have already seen here, you have the assembly constituency here, Namakkal 94. So you just have to choose it as Namakkal and search. So now you have all the data of the polling booths in Namakkal. There are dozens of polling booths. It's impossible to search all this. So what you can do is you can just convert this into Tamil translation and you can search here, or you can use this pin code 637019, that particular unique identifier to search 637019. So there are 56 matches out of how much? Okay, out of 286 polling booths. Now we just have to search 56 booths. So let's see. No, this is not. This is in right. So here you see Nidhi Udavi Palli Talambadi. So this is my polling booth. As you can see here, also you can see the Talambadi here, and it matches with the Talambadi here along with the pin code too. So you just have to click on the roll, and again you have to pass the verification EMY and submit the form. Right. So now we have got all the eligible candidates of the given polling booth. Now you can see all the eligible candidates in my particular village. So now what you can do is you can verify whether the roll is correct by using the part number 67. So we have the part number 67 here. So this roll is the right roll. And what you have to do is the serial number. You have to find the serial number here. So the serial number starts from here 1. Now my serial number is 37. So you gotta go back to the serial number 37, right? So this is 37, and here you have Arun Kumar, who's my dad, and you can get his dad's name too. That is my grandfather's name, Ramasamy, and you have my house number, my door number, which is 18, and you have my dad's age, and my mom's name, my again her husband's name, which is my father's name, and my door number, and you also have my grandma's name. So you have from just the electoral source, you now have entire information about my family. You now have my grandfather's name, my grandmother's name, my dad's name, and my mom's name, along with their age and my age, and the door number of all of my home and all my parents location. So this is how you could get data from electoral rolls for a particular suspect. This is one of the most reliable methods when it comes to Indian crowd.